Hello, viewers. This is Mitch from Cardboard of the Rings, the bi-weekly podcast about the Lord of the Rings, the card game, which is a living card game by Fantasy Flight Games. And today we're bringing you yet another special video production. This is going to be a solo deck against the Return to Mirkwood scenario. So this scenario today is the 6th and final adventure pack of the Shadows of Mirkwood cycle, our very first cycle of adventure packs. And today I'm going to be playing a slightly modified version of my solo deck, which involves the new Foundations of Stone version of Glorfindel, good old Frodo Baggins, and the Watcher in the Water lore version of Aragorn. I've already gone ahead and set my starting threat at a very, very reasonable 24. I've got my quest cards set out here on the table as I move through the 4 different phases of this quest, hopefully to a victory, but we'll have to see. As a solo experience, this is a pretty swingy quest. It can be extremely difficult, it can be extremely easy depending on what comes off of the encounter deck. Probably the biggest problem for me is going to be this 3rd quest phase here. So if I have a lot of nasty enemies in the staging area especially, the inability to play any cards from my hand can be a really big problem. One of the most difficult aspects of this quest is probably just how quickly your threat can rise. Once I put the Gollum card on the table, you'll be able to see why. But hopefully with this deck, all of its threat reduction mechanics, starting very low and having this new version of Aragorn out on the table, I should have a pretty reasonable time keeping my threat from capping out at 50 and costing me the game. I mentioned this is a slightly modified version of my existing deck that I've used now in a couple different videos, and I'm going to go ahead and put up the deck list now. So if you're a very astute and perceptive individual, you might notice a few changes. Some really basic stuff is I added one more version of Hinnamarth River Song, and what I've taken out, the biggest changes to this deck are removing the Songs of Wisdom. I removed a Burning Brand, and I completely got rid of the Rivendell Minstrel. So in their place, I've gone ahead and put in some Forest Snare, just to deal with any hill trolls if they happen to come off the deck. I've added in some Songs of Eärendil to make this much more multiplayer friendly, since this deck is really good at dropping my threat back down to my starting level after it gets really, really high from Frodo, absorbing a lot of different attacks. That's a convenient way for me to make sure that my allies' threat stays very low as well. And the Forest Snare helps out just because the attacking capability of this deck is pretty limited. I also added in some Escort from Aedoras. I wasn't really sure what to put in place of Northern Tracker. They're really expensive, so they don't really do me a lot of good in a single-player setting. In a big 3 or 4 player game, they might be worth including again, but for a solo experience, I definitely don't think those were worth including. I went ahead and put in some Escort from Aedoras, like I mentioned. It might help me overcome this 3rd phase of the quest. There are only 2 copies, so I might not see them, but if it just so happens to work out that I get them out on the table, that could be a pretty big asset. So that's enough said. Let's go ahead and get started here. Let's start shuffling our player deck. I'm going to go ahead and draw my starting hand of 6 cards. And it looks like I've got some pretty decent stuff out there. I could have definitely done without drawing 2 copies of Light of Valinor, but since I've got one, since I've got a Stargazer, since I've got some ability to scry the encounter deck, and I've even got some pretty significant card draw and good willpower, I'm going to go ahead and keep this starting hand. I'm going to go ahead and move on to Quest Phase 1A and do our setup here. So I'm going to search the encounter deck for Gollum. I have to pick myself to guard him for this entire game, shuffle the encounter deck, and reveal and add 1 card to the staging area. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and search for Gollum now. Let's look at all cards in the encounter deck. I've gone ahead and put him at the very top, so I'm going to put him in front of me here. close and shuffle the deck. And how this works is this guy is going to sit in front of me for the entire game. He's a creature, and he also counts as an ally under my control. But as you can see, his attack, defense, willpower is doing absolutely nothing for me. So if at any point I have an undefended attack, Golem has to take that damage, which is really too bad because a common strategy for me in this deck is to take a lot of undefended attacks and pile those on Frodo. If at any point Golem is destroyed, the game is over, and at the end of every round, I have to increase my threat by 3. So that's in addition to my regular 1, so that's going to be a massive threat surge. So hopefully I'll be able to burst through this quest pretty quickly. I have not tried to play this solo before, so this will be as a new experience for me, and hopefully make for a good video for you. So let's go ahead and get things started and reveal our first card off of the encounter deck. So our very first card to satisfy that setup requirement is going to be Dry Watercourse. So while this is the active location, all treachery cards, treachery card effects that target the player guarding Golem targets each other player. In a single player game, that has no effect whatsoever. This is probably the nastiest location of the Return to Mirkwood encounter deck that was introduced by that adventure pack. But again, really not a big deal in this scenario. We'll go ahead and move on to our first quest phase here, which is 1B through the forest. So 12 tokens, nothing too special here. Let's go ahead and start our very first round. So I'm going to go ahead and start our resource phase. I'm going to draw a card. I'll do my resources to each of my characters, and it looks like I drew an Elrond's Council. So again, great for keeping my threat very low. I'm going to go ahead and move to planning. I'll pay 1 resource from Glorfindel for Light of Valinor. I'm going to pay a couple resources, 1 from Aragorn, 1 from Frodo. I'm going to put out Hinnemarth River Song, do some scrying here. I'm going to put Ancient Matham on the Dry Watercourse, hopefully get some cards drawn. And I think what I want to do here is I want to go ahead and take a peek at the encounter deck with Hinnemarth River Song. So I'll go ahead and use his action. And let's see here, look at top 1 card. And it's going to be a King Spider. So when revealed, I'm going to have to exhaust a character. It will engage with me. So let's see. Let me think about what I'm going to do. Okay, so after taking a brief moment to actually look up the rule insert that came with Return to Mirkwood, just to clarify a rule, my concern was this when revealed effect. So each player must choose and exhaust 1 character he controls. According to the rules insert, it reads, Golem cannot be used to attack, defend, or commit to a quest. Otherwise, Golem is considered an ally character under the control of the player guarding him. Card effects that affect allies do affect him, and it goes on to say some stuff about attachments. But the important thing here is when this King Spider enters play, which it's going to do that during staging, that when revealed effect is going to go off. Since Golem does count as an ally, even though he can't commit to the quest, he can't attack, he can't defend, he is an ally. Effects that target allies can affect him. A character is defined as either a hero or an ally, so it looks like I'm going to be able to target Golem as the victim of this when revealed effect, which is actually really not too bad. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to go ahead and move on to questing. I'm going to commit Glorfindel alone, and I'm going to... Oh, this is really too bad. I was going to use Elrond's Council, but I'd have to give a different character that +1 willpower. So in this circumstance, I'm just going to have Glorfindel committed to the quest. Frodo and Aragorn are going to stay ready. So I'm going to go ahead and do staging. I reveal that King Spider, just like I scried. I'm up against 4 threat, but I've only been able to commit 3, so I fail the quest by 1. The King Spider, when revealed, I've got to exhaust. I'll have Golem as my chosen ally, and then I'll move on to my travel phase. So I'm going to go ahead and make the Dry Watercourse the active location here. For the engagement phase, the King Spider is going to come down, and I'm going to go ahead and drop a shadow card on him here. So he's going to attack. I'm going to go ahead and declare Frodo as the defender. Let's reveal the shadow card, and it is the East Bite, so no shadow effect whatsoever. I'm going to go ahead and discard that to keep our table clear. And as a response, I'm going to have Aragorn and Glorfindel team up to deal 6 damage to this King Spider. So it's reduced to -2 hit points, and it is killed. And we're going to go ahead and move on to the very end of the round. So my resource phase, I'm going to go ahead and ready all my cards. I'm going to increase my threat by 1 per usual. Gollum's Forced Effect causes me to raise my threat by an additional 3, and I'm already sitting at a 29. I'm going to go ahead and move on to round 2. I'm going to do a resource for each of my characters, and I'm going to draw a card. So Gandalf, welcome sight, but definitely pretty expensive. I'm going to go ahead and do my scrying effect before I play any cards this round. So let's look at the top 1 card of the encounter deck. And it's going to be a Woodman's Glade, so I'm free to quest with all of my characters this round, which is very cool. So let's see here. I'm going to go ahead and pay 1 resource from Frodo, 1 resource from Glorfindel, and I'm going to play an Imladris Stargazer. And I really want to get this out now, because as soon as this Ancient Matham gets off, I'm going to be able to basically have picked the top 3 cards in my deck to draw. So I'll trigger its ability. Let me look at the top 5 cards, and let's see what I'm going to want to draw from that Ancient Matham. So I definitely could go without the Rittermark's Finest, so I'm going to go ahead and use Elrond's Council, Ancient Matham, and Fast Hitch as my top 3. So let's see here. Let's go ahead and keep this as is. Let's move on to questing. I'm going to go ahead and commit Glorfindel for 3, Frodo makes 5, Aragorn is 7, and that is going to be all that I commit. I'm going to go ahead and trigger an Elrond's Council, so I'll go ahead and target Frodo with that. I'll give him +1 willpower for a total 8 committed to the quest. That drops my threat by 3 points down to 26, and I'm going to go ahead and do my staging. So, just like I scryed, again, the one location here is going to be that Woodman's Glade, and its travel effect is the player guarding Gollum must exhaust a hero he controls to travel there, but as soon as it's explored, I can drop my threat by 2. So not amazing, but definitely welcome during this quest. That means there's 2 threat in the staging area. I'm going to make 6 progress. 2 goes on our dry water course. It's going to be fully explored, triggering the Ancient Matham. And then 4 is going to go on our active quest step here, so this Through the Forest. Okay, so the Ancient Matham goes off. I'm going to go ahead and draw these top 3 cards in my deck. So I got the Fast Hitch to give Frodo some extra actions so he can quest and defend. I've got another Ancient Matham to get even more card draw, and another Elrond's Council to make sure my threat is staying pretty manageable. I'm going to go ahead and travel to the Woodman's Glade here, and I'm going to exhaust Glorfindel to pay that cost. So really not a big deal at all. Really just shows, again, how useful the new version of Glorfindel is. I'm going to go ahead and bring myself to the end of the round. I'm going to increase my threat by 1. Gollum means I have to increase my threat by 3. And then I'm going to go ahead and ready all my characters. So before I move on to round 3, something to keep in mind is at the very, very end of the round, after you increase your threat, after you ready all of your characters, you still have an action window to use. And I'm going to go ahead and take advantage of this to go ahead and trigger Imladris Stargazer's ability now. So instead of drawing the Rittermark's Finest, like I had as my 4th card on the deck, I'm going to go ahead and look at the top 5 cards right now, and then basically pick what I'm going to draw during my next planning phase. During my next resource phase. So I'm going to look at the top 5 cards, not draw 5, but look at top 5, and let's see. So out of all of these, Unexpected Courage is definitely going to be the most useful. Rittermark's Finest, not that great. Imladris Stargazer, really not that great. Hinnemarth Riversong, doing absolutely nothing for me. Gandalf is good, but expensive, so at the moment, I've got one anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and rearrange them into this order. So that's going to be fine for that. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the beginning of round 3. So we'll do my resources per usual. We'll go ahead and draw a card, which is that Unexpected Courage that we just put on top of our deck, and we'll go ahead and move on to planning. So let's see here. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and scry the top card of the encounter deck yet again. So let's look at the top card. And it's going to be yet another location, so the Spider's Ring. While the Spider's Ring is the active location, the player guarding Golem cannot change. Really not a big deal. It's 3 threat, but really not anything to worry about. If I drew Asphaloth, these locations would be just a complete joke. So now that I know what's coming up, I can commit all of my characters to questing without any kind of concern. This turn, I could play Unexpected Courage, but what I'm going to do instead is I think I'm going to go ahead and do my West Road Traveler just to get some additional progress down. And I think I'll also go ahead and pay... I'm not going to pay a resource yet for this Fast Hitch, just because I know that I'm not going to have to discard any cards. I know I'm not going to have to do any kind of multiple defending type tricks. So at the moment, I think I'm okay with this setup here. I'm going to go ahead and move on to questing. So I'll commit 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And I'm also going to go ahead and play another copy of Elrond's Counsel. So I might as well target Frodo again. I'm going to be committing a total of 10 willpower to the quest, and I'm going to drop my threat by 3, so I'm still sitting at 27. I didn't mention it, but this Light of Valinor makes it so that Glorfindel never has to exhaust, so even though he starts at a pathetically low threat of 5, he never has to trigger that forced ability of his. So I've got 10 committed to the quest, and let's see what we get for staging. Okay, surprise, surprise, it's the Spider's Ring, so we're going to make 7 progress here. So 2 progress is going to be absorbed by the Woodman's Glade, and 5 progress is going to go on to Through the Forest, that quest phase 1B. So we're almost done with our first phase of the quest, and the Woodman's Glade response triggers here, so I'm going to reduce the threat of each player not guarding Golem by 2. Okay, so I didn't read that right the first time. This does absolutely nothing for me, but at least it's out of my way. For travel, I'm going to go ahead and travel to the Spider's Ring, so I'll get that 3 threat out of the staging area, and there's no combat, so there's no engagement. I'm going to go ahead and bring myself to the refresh phase, ready all my cards, increase my threat by 1. Golem increases my threat by 3. So at the very end of my refresh phase, I've got this Imladris Stargazer ready to use its action to check out the top 5 cards of my deck. But something I should have done last turn is taken the advantage right now to use Hinnemarth Riversong. Just because if there's a specific something that I'm running up against, it would be really important to say, dig for something like a Forest Snare or a Test of Will. So if I know there's a Treachery coming up, maybe I'll want to be sure to draw that Test of Will on my turn. If I know there's a Hill Troll coming off the encounter deck, which I really hope there's not, then I'll know to dig for something like a Forest Snare. So I'm going to go ahead and use Hinnemarth Riversong's ability now to scry that top card of the encounter deck. Look at the top 1 card, and it's going to be this Wasted Provision. So discard the top 10 cards of the from the deck of the player guarding Golem. We've talked about this a lot on the podcast, but this is really not a very scary card, so I'm perfectly fine with seeing this. I'm going to go ahead and trigger the Imladris Stargazer now, and I'm going to go ahead and look at the top 5 cards of my deck. Okay, so it looks like the only new card I have coming up just so happens to be a Test of Will, which is cancel when revealed effects. The wasted provisions I'm really not concerned about. Discarding 10 cards may seem like a lot, but generally if you've got Dwarven Tomb, which this deck does actually have, that can be beneficial because it can give you more spirit cards to draw from. If you have Stand and Fight, that can be useful. So I'm not concerned at all about drawing cards. That's going to be basically a turn where I can wrap up the first quest phase here. Of most benefit to draw, I guess, is the Rittermark's Finest. I'm not too thrilled about it, but there's, not a whole lot else to do. I'm probably going to go ahead and use the... I'm not going to use the Ancient Matham this turn, but, that's just nothing too special coming off the encounter deck, not too excited about it. So I think I'm going to go ahead and move the cards into this order. I'm going to go ahead and finish up that round, and I'll go ahead and start my round 4. So I'll do my resource phase, 1 resource to each character, draw a card, of course. No surprises here, it's the Rittermark's Finest, and I think what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to hold off on playing that, and I'm going to lay down an Ancient Matham after all, just to free up some more cards, give the Stargazer some more things to do here. So the Matham is stuck to the Spider's Ring, and I'm gonna go ahead and play... I don't think I'm actually gonna play anything else yet. Again, there's no pressing concern to play that Fast Hitch. I'm fine for now. So for questing, I'm gonna commit Glorfindel for 3, Frodo for 5, Aragorn for 7, and the West Road Traveler for a total of 9, which will be overkill. Reveal my encounter card. It is Wasted Provisions, so discard top 10 cards of the player guarding Gollum's deck. The cards are going to be Gandalf for 1, Test of Will for 2, and it just struck me that it's a little bit pointless to have rearranged these cards now. Hinamarth for 3, Imladra Stargazer for 4, Rittermark's Finest for 5, Dwarven Tomb 6, Dwarven Tomb 7, Elrond's Council 8, Stargazer 9, Test of Will 10, and 11 is another Rittermark's Finest. So wow, plowing through a lot of the garbage in my deck. So Wasted Provisions, not a bad thing. I'm going to get a lot of use out of my Stargazer this upcoming refresh phase for sure. So a total of 9 committed to the quest, and I've only got Spider's Ring will be absorbing 2, so I'll go ahead and put 7 on our active quest. So our 16 blows that 12 away, and we're going to go ahead and move on to quest phase 2A. So no text here. And for Quest Phase 2B, the only thing that we have to worry about is if we quest unsuccessfully, Gollum escapes and the players lose the game. Since I'm the only player in the game, I don't have to worry about not being able to commit characters to the quest. I just cannot screw up. So I'm going to go ahead and trigger the response for the Ancient Matham, and I'm going to go ahead and draw 3 cards blind this time. And talk about just some fantastic cards. Arwen is incredible, Forest Snare is fantastic, and Bofur is really great. It's going to be really nice having him, possibly. Well, I don't know if I'm going to end up playing him dry, if you want to call it that, so I definitely... Yeah, I'm not going to be able to use his ability to circumvent this, playing cards, just because his ability is paying spirit resources to put him into play. So that is basically going to wrap up my turn. I don't have any events to play, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to my refresh phase. I'm going to go ahead and ready all my characters, increase my threat by 1, increase my threat by 3, and then I'm going to go ahead and use Hinamarth and the Imladra Stargazer. So to start things off, I'm going to go ahead and use Hinamarth to peek at the encounter deck. And the top card is going to be Ungoliant Spawn. So definitely could have gone without drawing this, but I suppose it's not going to be the end of the world. So Ungoliant Spawn was definitely not what I wanted to see, but this, knowing exactly what's going to be coming up is going to give me an opportunity to take advantage of that. So I know that Ungoliant Spawn itself is going to go ahead and contribute 3 threat against me, and it's going to reduce the willpower of each character committed to the quest by 1. Since I've got that Forest Snare in my hand, if I play my cards right, I can make sure to make less than 3 progress so that I do not have to progress into this quest phase 3. Okay, so now that I know that Ungoliant Spawn is definitely going to be coming off of the top of the encounter deck, I'm going to go ahead and trigger the Imladra Stargazer to look at the top 5 cards of my deck. And at this point, I should not know what any of these cards are, so let's go ahead and take a look. And it looks like I've got Song of the Arindil, which isn't going to do a lot for me. That's really only for multiplayer purposes. Asphalloth would be great for getting rid of locations, so I'll definitely keep that one in mind. And then there's another Forest Snare, which is going to be really important at some point. So I'm going to probably think that Forest Snare is more important than Asphalloth, just in case I get a Hill Troll or something nasty like that. Okay, I guess at the very end of the game, players cannot defeat this stage if there are any enemies in play, but Forest Snare definitely makes those easier to manage. And then I've got another Ancient Matham, so I'm probably going to end up putting, I suppose it would be of most benefit to get that Cancel when revealed. None of these cards are really going to be doing anything for me now, so I'll just draw them as I go. So I'll go ahead and close out of that, and I'll begin round number 5. I'll go ahead and do my resources here. I'm going to draw a card, that Test of Will, and I'm going to go ahead and get ready for my planning. So I'm going to commit 2 resources here. I think I want to put out an Unexpected Courage on Aragorn, just in preparation for this not being able to play cards. It's tempting to put out someone like Arwen, but I think I'm going to go ahead and do Unexpected Courage. I'll probably play her next turn, and I'm going to go ahead and spend one of his resources to get out that Fast Hitch, since it's basically now is the time to get out those cards. That'll still leave me next turn with plenty of resources to get out that Forest Snare, so shouldn't be a big deal. So for questing, I'm going to go ahead and commit Glorfindel for the quest, and with Ungoliant Spawn showing up, he's only going to be able to effectively contribute 2 of his willpower to the quest, and I probably could have done this on an earlier turn, but what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and pay 1 resource from Frodo to put Bofur into play, exhausted and committed to the quest. He's going to contribute only 1 willpower, and what this is going to result in is I'm going to have a total of 3 willpower committed to the quest. Ungoliant Spawn is going to be revealed, and my effective 3 willpower is going to match her threat. According to the rulebook, if you break even threat-wise, players neither quest successfully or unsuccessfully, and since his ability reads, if I quest successfully, I return him to my hand, this is a really convenient way for me to effectively cheat him into play. So I'm going to go ahead and use that as my questing this round, and now I'm going to go ahead and reveal the top card from the encounter deck now. So once again, no surprises here. Ungoliant Spawn comes off the encounter deck, Glorfindel contributes 2 to the quest, Bofur contributes a measly 1, but that's really all I need. So I break even, Bofur is going to stay in play, and now I've got this nasty Ungoliant Spawn to deal with. I do have a threat higher than its engagement cost, so it is going to come down and attack me during the engagement phase. Fortunately, just like I cheated Bofur into play, I'm cheating loss of this scenario because I have not quested unsuccessfully. Since I broke even, I'm able to get Bofur into play and avoid losing the game via Gollum escaping at the same time. So a very sneaky play, but it worked out pretty well for me. So at the beginning of the combat phase, let's go ahead and deal out 1 shadow card to Ungoliant Spawn, And I think in this situation I'm going to go ahead and use Aragorn as a defender. I would normally use Frodo, but in this situation I really want to make sure to minimize my threat, so I'm going to go ahead and use Aragorn since he has plenty of defense at 2 and a pretty big pool of 5 hit points there. So I'll exhaust him as a defender, and let's go ahead and flip this shadow card. So it looks like the card is Wargs, so the attacking enemy gets a total of 6 attack strength. He's going to absorb 4 of that, or 2 of that, so he's going to end up taking 4 damage. This may have been a really stupid decision. Again, I'm not too familiar with the shadow effects in this deck. If he'd have had another hit point left, I'd feel much safer, considering there are things like the Bats of Mirkwood that come out and deal 1 damage to all characters controlled by the player guarding Golem. There's also the Hummerhorn's shadow effect, so that was actually a lot nastier than I thought it would be, but hopefully it's not going to be the end of the world here. I'm going to go ahead and activate Unexpected Courage to ready up Aragorn, and as a response, I'm going to go ahead and have Glorfindel, Frodo, and Aragorn all combine their attacks for a total of 7 against Ungoliant's spawn here. So it's going to absorb all but 5 of that damage. So I'll go ahead and put that on there now. And that's going to bring me to the end of my turn. So I'm going to go ahead and ready all of my characters. I'm going to increase my threat by 1, increase my threat by 3. I'll trigger Hinnomarth Riversong to scry the top card of the encounter deck. And it's going to be a Warg Rider. And this is actually problematic because this, even though by itself it's not a bad enemy, it's got Surge. So that's going to be something that I can't predict coming off of the encounter deck. So definitely not thrilled about seeing that, but, well, I guess we'll have to see how things go. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and just deal with it. So I'll trigger my Imladris Stargazer to look at the top 5 cards of my deck, and I'm going to go ahead and rearrange those now. This other copy of Arwen isn't doing me any good. Ancient Matham is only useful if I draw a location. Same thing goes for Asphalloth. My ability to use another Forest Snare is a couple turns away, but I'm thinking that's probably the most useful card for me to draw, so I'm going to go ahead and put these in this order. I think I'm going to go ahead and do this. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and start my round number 6. I'm going to draw a card, that Forest Snare. I'm going to do my resources. Really don't like how Aragorn looks there with 4 wounds. And I'm going to go ahead and do my planning. So I think I'm going to go ahead and spend 2 resources here for Arwen Undomiel. So I think that's going to wrap up my planning phase. Something I was considering doing was Forest Snare, but now that Ungoliant's spawn is only going to take 6 damage to deal the finishing blow, Glorfindel and Aragorn can amass that much attack strength by themselves, so instead of wasting the 3 resources for a snare, I think I'm just going to go ahead and eat 1 more attack from it and then have them team up to go ahead and deliver the coup de grace there. So I think what I'll go ahead and do is move on to questing. I'll have Glorfindel contribute 3. I'll have Frodo. I don't think I'm going to have him quest. I'll have Westroad Traveler, Arwen, and Beaufort all committed to the quest. So Arwen is going to go ahead and target Frodo with her ability. So it's going to be a total of 2, 4, 6, 9 committed to the quest so far. And I think that should be hopefully more than sufficient to make 3 progress here. Unless, well, even if I draw something ridiculous like the Brown Lands, that will still put me through it, so I should be good. Unless the Wolf Rider really ruins things. But let's go ahead and see what we get for staging here. So staging is, of course, our Wolf Rider, and a Woodman's Glade, so again, another location. Really not a big deal. And that's going to be it for our staging. We've got 3 threat in the staging area. We're going to go ahead and make 6 progress. And that means we're going to go ahead and move on to Quest Phase 3A. There's no instructions, so we move on to 3B, and we can, at this point, no longer play cards from our hand. Fortunately, I have a lot of stuff on the table, but this is a really restrictive thing here, so I'm going to try and burst through this as quickly as possible. So I'm going to go ahead and exhaust Frodo to travel to the Woodman's Glade. I'll trigger Fast Hitch to ready Frodo, and then I'm going to go ahead and move on to the encounter phase. The Wolf Rider, of course, comes and engages with me, and I'm going to go ahead and deal out shadow cards, starting with Ungoliant Spawn, and then with our Wolf Rider here. So first things first, I'm going to go ahead and have Frodo defend against Ungoliant Spawn. And I'm going to go ahead and flip that shadow card. And there is no shadow effect whatsoever. So right now he's got 3 defense from Arwen Undomiel's ability, and that means he's going to be taking 2 damage. So instead of allowing him to take that damage, I'm just going to take that as an increase to my threat because of his ability. So I'm going to boost my threat by 2. And then I've got this other attack coming in from the Wolf Rider. Since Gollum is sitting here with 5 hit points, damage from undefended attacks have to be dealt to him. I'm actually going to go ahead and allow this to go undefended. So let's go ahead and flip his shadow card. And it is the Spider's Ring. And this is actually kind of frustrating and kind of unfortunate just because it kind of adds more time to how long it's going to take me to quest past this last quest phase here, but basically the Spider's Ring becomes the active location, and my other active location here, Woodman's Glade, is returned to the staging area. So this is a very conditional shadow effect, but it just happened to go off. So regardless, Gollum is going to take 2 damage, so he's still sitting there. I'm still in the game, and now my enemies are done attacking. So first things first, I'm going to have Aragorn attack the Wolf Rider. So his 3 attack brings it to -1 hit point. It is killed outright. Trigger Unexpected Courage. Ready him again. Aragorn and Glorfindel are going to team up against Ungoliant Spawn to put 4 more damage on this guy. So its defense absorbs 2, it takes 4, it's at 9 damage, 9 hit points, it's defeated, and that is going to go ahead and end the turn for me. So refresh, I'm going to ready all my characters, going to increase my threat by 1, and then increase my threat by 3, so I'm getting at a very dangerously high level here. This is a refresh action that Aragorn's ability has. So at this point, I've got a couple options. I can either use his ability now, or I can use it next turn, knowing that, basically knowing what's going to come off the encounter deck. So if there just so happen to be a treachery like Gollum's Anguish that would increase my threat, I've got that Cancel When Revealed card sitting here in my, I wanted to say inventory, but sitting here in my hand. But let's see for sure what's coming off the encounter deck. So I'm going to go ahead and look at the top X cards, top 1 card, and it's going to be another Spider's Ring. So even though this doesn't seem too bad, and it's really not, that 3 threat is going to be annoying because it's going to block me a little bit longer on the Elven King's Halls. But out of everything coming off this encounter deck, there's much worse, so I'm okay with that. I'm going to go ahead and not use his ability this turn. So next turn, come refresh phase, I'm going to hit 49 threat, and that'll be the perfect opportunity to use his ability. So I'll hold off for now. I'm going to go ahead and trigger my Imladris Stargazer to look at the top 5 cards of my deck. Let's see here. And those cards are really not that great, but I think I'm going to go ahead and put Asphalloth right there. I think I'll do Song of Earendil. Oh, no, I'll just do Asphalloth. I'll just do it like that. So I think that's fine. Not too important at this point. So that's fine there. I'm going to go ahead and progress to my next round, round number 7, and I'll do my resources per usual, but I cannot play any cards from my hand at any point during this turn, so I'm really stuck at this point, but at least I know what's coming up, and it looks like I'm going to be okay, at least for this round. For planning, not able to do anything. For questing, I'm going to go ahead and do 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Total of 13 points contributed. I'm going to go ahead and do staging. I'm going to reveal that spider's ring. I've got a total of 5 threat out in the staging area. That means I'm going to make 8 progress. This absorbs 2, so it goes away, and I make a total of 6 progress on my active quest phase number 3B here. So I'm 1 progress token shy of completing this. Hopefully nothing terrible is going to come off the deck next turn, but knowing this game, having played this enough, you really never know. So for travel, I'm going to go ahead and make the Spider's Ring the active location, just because it's 1 more threat than the Woodman's Glade. But it's really going to come down to what's coming off the encounter deck next. Hopefully it's not anything bad, but we'll have to see. I'm going to go ahead and skip encounter and combat, and I'm going to move to my refresh phase. So ready all characters. Increase your threat by 1, increase my threat by 3 for Gollum, so I'm sitting at 49, and now I am going to trigger Aragorn's refresh action. So once per game, I'm going to drop my threat to its very starting level. So that's Glorfindel with 5, Frodo makes 12, Aragorn makes 24, so I'm going to drop my threat by an incredible 25. One of the hardest parts about this quest doing it solo is hitting that threat cap of 50, so hopefully with this new version of Aragorn, I've been able to work around that. But before this guy came out, you'd have to stack a lot of Galadrim's Greeting, and it must have just been a nightmare to get through. So during this refresh phase, I'm also going to use Hinnemarth Riversong's ability to scry top card of the encounter deck. And that card is going to be yet another wasted provision, so I'm going to be sitting with very few cards in my draw pile, but again, very welcome to see this as opposed to something like Attercop, or a Hill Troll, so a welcome reprieve here. I'm going to go ahead and close out of that. I'll use my Stargazer to scry the top 5 cards of my deck, and let's see what we've got here. Looks like it's... I wonder if I missed drawing a card at some point, but anyway, pretty much the same, so that's pretty much that. If I did screw up somewhere, just feel free to let me know in the comments, but moving along, I'm going to go ahead and move on to round number 8. Going to do my resources. Yet again, I cannot play any cards, but that's okay. I'm going to draw a card, whether I forgot to last turn or not. I've now got Asphalloth, can't play it, but at least he's sitting there in my hand, looking majestic, and let's see. I'm going to go ahead and skip my planning, and I'm going to go ahead and commit 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13 to the quest. Again, always targeting Frodo with Arwen's ability. So 13 committed to the quest. Let's go ahead and flip our staging. And surprise, surprise, wasted provisions, so discard the top 10 cards of my deck. So I'm going to discard down to 10 cards. Song of Arundel, Ancient Matham, Arwen Undolmiel, Asphalloth, Light of Valinor, Arwen, Bofur, Unexpected Courage, shame to see that go. Asphalloth, not a big deal. Fast Hitch, not a big deal. So only 10 cards remaining in the deck, but again, not the end of the world. So I'm going to make a total of 11 progress, thanks to the Woodman's Glades, 2 threats, and 9 is going to go on my quest card. So Spider's Ring absorbs 2, and that's going to be a total of 15 points on Quest Phase 3. I'm going to go ahead and move on to 4A, Ambush, and... ambush, really not looking like much of an ambush at this point. Forced, at the beginning of the combat phase, all enemies in play engage the player guarding Gollum. I cannot defeat this stage if there are any enemies in play. If the players defeat this stage, they have won the game. This is all going to come down at this point to whether or not I have an enemy coming off the encounter deck this next turn. So we'll have to scry what it is, but if I draw an enemy, it's going to last another round. If not, then I'll be able to finish it up this following round. So let's see here. For travel, at this point, there's really no point to traveling to the Woodman's Glade, but I suppose I'll do it anyway. I'll exhaust Glorfindel to do so, put that in my active location spot, and then I'm going to go ahead and do my refresh phase, increase my threat from my starting level to 25, increase it 3 for Golem, and now I'm going to go ahead and scry the top card of the encounter deck, and it's going to be a location. So this really was not the most difficult return to Mirkwood, but it's hopefully at least another glimpse to see how this deck functions. So I'll use my Imladris Stargazer yet again to look at the top 5 cards here. Unexpected Courage is always welcome. Here's that escort from Aedoros that would have been helpful to get through that third quest phase. I've got another West Road Traveler. I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and use that Unexpected Courage, so I think my cards are fine organized like this. I'm going to go ahead at this point and finish up my refresh phase, and I'm going to go ahead and move into round number 9's resource phase. So I'm going to add 1 resource to each of my characters. At this point, I can play event cards, which is very, very welcome. Going to go ahead and draw a card, which is Unexpected Courage. I'll spend 2 resources from Aragorn to play Asphalloth on Glorfindel here. I'm going to go ahead and pay 2 off of Glorfindel, since he's squishier than Frodo, to put an Unexpected Courage on, I think I'll do it on Glorfindel, just so he could have hypothetically quested, attacked, and defended, since he's got way more hit points remaining than Aragorn. And I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and, just for the fun of it, I'll play a Rittermark's Finest. I'll use all of Aragorn's remaining resources to play Gandalf. I'll go ahead and drop my threat by 5. And I think that's going to make for one hell of a finishing turn. For questing, I'll do 3 for Glorfindel. Frodo makes 5, 7, 9, 11, 13, 14, a total of 18. I'm going to go ahead and do staging, and I'm going to reveal a Spider's Ring. So this is going to contribute 3 threat versus me, but it's not really going to do anything. I've got an opportunity to play any event cards or take actions before quest resolution, so I'm going to go ahead and trigger Asphalloth to put 2 progress tokens on this, so I'm going to get rid of it before it counts its threat against me. Right now there's 0 threat in the staging area, so I'm going to make a total of 16 progress on our active quest. So our location is gone. I'm going to go ahead and put a total of 16 progress tokens on quest phase 4B. It only requires 2 tokens. Currently, there are no enemies in play. If the players defeat this stage, they've won the game. So at this point, the game is won. I've got a lot of good stuff on the table. I think what really helped me make it through this quest is those scrying effects were super helpful, knowing exactly what was coming off the deck. Quest Phase 3B really wasn't that bad. I got lucky with some locations throughout this game. There are a lot of nasty enemies in this encounter deck. Things like the Mirkwood bats could have, killed all my allies, like the West Road Traveler, the Hinnemarth River Song, Imladris Stargazer. Those all would have been eliminated immediately and made this much more difficult for me. But I did get lucky. No hill trolls, no Attercop. So overall, this seemed like a pretty quick and dirty but easy return to Mirkwood. Let's pull up our calculator to figure out our final score. And what a viewer actually mentioned to me is that I had been calculating score wrong. So you only tally each round counted toward your score at the end of your refresh phase. So even though we started round 9, we're only going to count the first 8 rounds toward our eventual score. So I've got 80 points from the number of rounds I took. I'm going to add my starting threat of 23. I'm going to add 4 damage, which is the number of damage on our heroes, and I've got no victory points, so those are going to be our only variables here. So no dead heroes, no victory points makes for a total score, solo return to Mirkwood, of 107. So that's the quest. Again, as always, if you guys liked what you saw, feel free to like or subscribe to this video. I did hope that you enjoyed it. If you've got any comments or suggestions for other content you'd like to see, other scenarios you'd like to see played through, or even specific matchups for the Cardboard of the Rings cast, feel free to let us know what you guys want to see. As always, check out the podcast at cardboardoftherings.com, and thank you guys very much for watching. Have a good one.